Hello everyone, welcome back to RPGs. I'm your host, KenTheNoun. Now, last time we talked about a situation that led to a lot of anger and hatred. Now, how about we balance out that hatred with the opposite of it? Love. And hey, this seems like the perfect timing considering that it's Valentine's Day, or at least it is when I'm uploading this, cause, well, let's face it, there's like, what, a 99.7% chance you're watching this on any other day than Valentine's Day. Now, one of the great things about tabletop RPGs is that you can have something that you would never be able to have in reality, like a meaningful relationship with another individual. Oh, I'm sorry. I kind of just made myself depressed by saying that, but fuck it, I'll keep that in. Oh. Anyways, how about we start by making me introduce you guys to my D&D character, Sugarlight. Now, Sugarlight, when I first made him, was this 8-foot tall golem with like a... He didn't really have a head, but more like he had like a glowing purple jewel in his chest, particularly a Sugarlight, you know, the gem he's named after. And that gem mostly served the purpose for pretty much, I guess, being his brain, heart, and soul, kinda. And there was a thing where one of our party members, Arya, in order for Sugarlight to not shut down, she would have to, every few hours, you know, give him a magical charge to keep him running. So Sugarlight was just pretty much this monotone, you know, pretty much the closest thing to a robot in a fantasy setting, you know, being a golem and all. He was just pretty much the silent fighter. You know, at first he used his fist, but then eventually he bought himself a battle axe. Then I think I should also add that, you know, if you're picturing this huge golem and thinking that's intimidating, to kind of balance that out, accidentally, I made something hilarious where I pretty much just said to the party that I imagine he sounds like Dimitri Martin. You know, particularly with, you know, the voice he uses for Ice Bear, which is kind of his own voice, but you know what I mean. If you've seen We Bear Bears, you know what I'm talking about. And throughout this game, all of the player characters, except for Sugarlight, ended up with, like, some of the NPCs in the game. Arya, tiefling mage, ended up with this magic student named Trixie. Our human ranger, Alexei, ended up with this girl named Barit, who I think when he first met her, she was like a maid to this rich douchebag. Felipe, our halfling thief, ended up with a character named Celeste, who was like the head of the treasury, I think. And apparently he ended up with her because apparently he rolled charisma so well they ended up seducing her, and she was supposed to be an unseducible NPC. Like, I guess he rolled a nat 20 or something like that. That's at least what I've heard. Let's see, what else? Spent, Dragonborn cleric, and I'd probably have a story about Spent eventually, but not today. He ended up with a... Well, at first she was presented as a member of this church called the All, but it turns out, no, that was just an act, and she's really this mercenary, and her name is Fee, I think. Yeah, her name's Fee. And then another character, Song, a human... I don't remember what class Song was, because, well... To just put it quickly, we're still playing this game, but the guy who plays Song, we tied Song and replaced him with someone else. Yeah, I don't remember what class Song was. I want to say Warlord, but I'm not sure, and he ended up with this chick in the army whose name I can't remember. So yeah, Sugarlight was the only member of the party who didn't have a girlfriend, which, you know, would make sense considering that, you know, he's a golem, you know, he's made of stone, and pretty much, you know, genderless, but still. Well, that eventually changed. You see, in the story at the time, the country that we live in and starts to work for, the KenTheNoun Empire, was currently at war with the elves. And we were sent on a mission because we learned that the elves were building this giant super magical cannon or something like that. You know, powerful enough to just take out the wall, like, you know the giant cannon in Legend of Korra that was attached to the Colossus? Imagine that without the Colossus. So we went on this journey to go find this cannon that the elves were building, and also part of the mission is because, you know, a bunch of KenTheNoun citizens were also taken prisoner and, you know, being used as slave labor to build this giant cannon. Well, we eventually reached to where this cannon was built, to see that there wasn't one, but I think there was like half a dozen, like I think there was like 6, the number could be wrong, but let's just say there were 6. So with this, we had to split the party, where I don't remember exactly which job Sugla was given. I want to say that he and Arya went off to stab the explosives into the cannons, because, yeah, we were given, like, these explosives that blew up with a magical charge, I think. I want to say that's what Sugla was sent off to do. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, 2 of us were sent off to that, 2 of us were sent off to take out the guards, and 2 of the others were sent off to rescue the prisoners. And before we were sent on this mission, we were told of one person in particular that the person who gave us this mission, I think it was the Emperor, told us one person in particular they referred to as the geologist, just the geologist, like no name given. And I think this geologist was taken particularly to help the elves build this like water mill. I don't know what his purpose was. Maybe it was to like generate electricity for this work camp. I'm not 100% sure. But anyways, we each do our thing, and the geologist is found, and she's a woman. She's this like very monotone, like she spoke a monotone voice woman with like straight medium length hair, wearing a dark blue dress, named, and she gave that her name was Maud. And some of you might get what that's a reference to, because here's a little thing that we DMs do. We tend to make characters inspired by other characters. Hell, you may have already figured that out with characters like Trixie and Celeste, but yeah. Anyways, we do what we're supposed to do. We get the prisoners free. The prisoners go running off to a point where, like, yeah, I think we will just, like, get to this point, you'll hopefully be safe, and the party was then stopped by a boss, a elf on a warg named Lauka. Well, Lauka was the name of the elf, not the warg, and he started giving this big speech. But here's another thing about D&D that's good advice for the DMs. Try to avoid giving your villains big dramatic speeches, because the party, being played by actual people, not, actors or whatever, they're not going to let the villain speak. This is something that DM Zach had to learn a few times. The party will not let the villain give a speech. So I think it was a combination of Slugolite and Felipe, I believe. I think both of them reacted fast enough to pretty much hit Lauka so hard that he went flying out of the building into another one, like that one that was on fire. And, well, I think the building we were also in was on fire, but pretty much Lauka was pitched out. Like, he wasn't dead, he showed up again later. That may be a story for another day, but pretty much now this boss fight was not with him, but just us against his warg. And long story short, because I can't really give a play about this because I don't really remember. There wasn't even really that big dramatic moments I remember. Pretty much, we ended up killing the warg and decapitating it and taking its head so that we can take its skull and add it to our bar, because, yeah, that's another thing. Our characters, we own a bar. Well, Arya owns a bar, and we have like this glass case full of the skulls of our enemies, because I guess we want to make it look like our bar is run by the Predator or something. So pretty much that was it. Lauka set on fire, running away like a bitch. We met him later. I think like half of his face was burned off. His warg dead. We took the head. So pretty much, yeah, job done. Buildings on fire, cannons destroyed. Yeah, our job was done. So we left and eventually met up with all the prisoners that we freed, reviewing that the warg was dead at least. So we started walking. We had to make a stop in this town, but before that, Maud, she approached Suglite being a geologist, and it was like, "So, you're a golem?" "Yes." "Can I study you sometime?" "Sure." Like, that was pretty much the first conversation, very monotone. I guess kind of awkward, but conversation between two monotone people, like, two people, a few words. Though the next day we find that the orcs and another person that we were against, a necromancer named Marcus Aquinas, caught up with us. So all of us in the escaped prisoners had to run the fuck away and escape back to the capital. So yeah, that happened. I know it feels like I'm glossing over something, but that's not the point in this video. Anyways, between then and, like, there's a decent amount of time between then and the next time that Sugolite saw Maud. The next time he saw her was with a solo session that Sugolite had where, well, all of us were given solo sessions that are tied into a letter that the DM sent to each and every one of us, like a natural physical letter he sent to us for with our Christmas gifts of that year. So Sugolite's was from the Magus of the Cadenza Empire. Shao, his name is. Yeah, Shao, the Magus of the Cadenza Empire, also the father of Marcus Aquinas, the necromancer mentioned earlier. But anyways, Marcus wanted to study Sugolite because part of Sugolite's backstory is that he was created by this tiefling like this famous tiefling mage known as Petrikov. Once again, another reference, though I'm the one who decided to have that. But yeah, Shao wanted to study Sugilite because of his creator, because, yeah, best way to put it, Petrikov, well, being a well-known mage, did kind of disappear off of the face of the earth a few hundred years ago. And then, as for Maud, wanted to study Sugilite earlier, so Sugilite decided knock two birds out with one stone, have him study him at the same time. So yeah, throughout this, they learned things about Sugilite and Petrikov, like, I think the reason why Petrikov left his, the old person he was working for, someone known as the Mad King, like, he stopped working for him, like, the reason why, and I think the reason why Sugilite was made was, I don't think it was revealed, but it was, like, hinted at that Sugilite was, like, commissioned by the Mad King, like, he wanted an army of artificial soldiers, and Sugilite was the first, like, a prototype. Anyways, one of the tests was, to understand Sugilite and how his emotions work, because one thing that I personally did with Sugilite is, like, when he was first introduced, yes, he was, like, completely emotionless, like, completely monotone, spoke in the third person. Well, even for the longest time, he kept speaking in the third person, but yeah. But slowly, as the story went on, I gave him more and more emotional range, and yeah, just the idea that he was slowly learning how to copy and feel emotions. And, they wanted to study this, and something happened to make Shao have to leave the room. I think he had to deal with, like, some students or something like that. Because, yeah, he's a teacher as well. But yeah, some spell was cast on Sugilite that wherever Sugilites feel like it would be represented with a ball of light, like that was like a few feet away from him, like behind him, like, kind of like a mood ring. So Maud just started asking Sugilite questions like, how does he feel towards certain characters? Like some of his friends, he ended up talking about his hatred for one particular god named Jareth. We'll get to him eventually, trust me. Why Sugilite hates that god, but anyways, Maud then asked Sugilite, what do you think about me? And Sugilite, because at this point I kind of figure, like, yeah, Zach, the DM's setting up for this to be Sugilite's love interest, so I was like, fuck it. Sugilite responded with, I don't know why, but something about you interests me. I feel happy when I'm around you. And at that point, I believe she blushed, gave him a kiss on his gem, said you interest me too, and then left. So, pretty much in the game itself, not much happened with Maud around, but I'd like to imagine that off-screen, Sugilite and Maud did start spending more and more time together, like, and pretty unrelated to the research. That's at least what I like to imagine, like, I kind of imagine that they were more or less dating at this point, though, as awkward that is with, a golem man, does leads to the next part of this story. See, after season 1 of this campaign, each one of our characters was given a solo session that I think the DM referred to as 5 days, 5 years, where, yeah, we each played out 5 days, like one random day for a 5-year period, like, a random day in year 1, year 2, year 3, like that. So, with how I started for Sugilite's solo session of this was him walking to Maud's house because he had something very important to talk to her about. Pretty much I imagine leading up to this at some point, Sugilite, while he was spending time with her, ended up realizing, holy shit, I'm in love with this woman, and, him being a golem leads to some very obvious difficulties to make that work. And if you don't know what I'm referring to, you're way too young to be on my channel, so go watch some Finger Family stuff or whatever the fuck that the kids are into these days. So Sugilite went and to go to visit Maud and had her sit down and started to talk with her, which I'm gonna try to replicate what I said because I may get some of these lines wrong, but because between what the DM Zach and even though it was a solo session, some of the other people were around to, wanted to listen to what happened. Like, I've been told multiple times that this is apparently the most poetic thing I've ever said. I believe it went something like this. Maud, are you okay with what I am? What do you mean, Sugilite? Maud, I want to become human, because as I spend time with you, I come to realize I want to know what it's like to touch you. I want to know what it's like to kiss you. The more and more I fall in love with you, the more I hate myself. So then Maud hugs Sugilite, saying that yes, she too wishes for that. So they go off to meet Shao because they figure if anyone knows how to perform a spell like that, it's probably him. And they do, and Yeah, they talk with Shao about this, and he brings them into like these archives where he finds and pulls out a scroll about making homunculi, and on the scroll is a certain symbol that Sugilite recognizes. The symbol made, and used by his creator, Petrikov. So with that, the Magus Shao, he pretty much took the scroll, and I forget the reason. I think it's because of where he got it or something. Or where he knew where others were. Pretty much, we had to go to another country called Orleans, which was more or less France, where we cut to year 2 of this solar session. So we go to this Orlesian library where we find more scrolls by Petrikov, and eventually the librarian, seeing us mess with these things and reading these, he tells us that he actually knows someone named Petrikov who lives out in like the wasteland, something like that. Like, there's apparently someone in this country by the name of Petrikov, and this definitely gets Sugilite and Shao curious because, one, the fact that Petrikov disappeared off the face of the earth, and two, Sugilite, I guess part of his backstory, he was like created 1,000 years ago, and like more or less at some point Petrikov had to escape the castle that the Mad King was running. He left Sugilite behind, and Sugilite was pretty much offline for like 1,000 years, and eventually recovered by Arya. But well, he was found and taken by the KenTheNoun army pretty much in the basement, then Arya revived him, turned him back on. So yeah, Sugilite and Shao are curious, like, is this a descendant of him or the same guy? Because if it's the same guy, how? Because he should be dead. People don't live 1,000 years, not even tieflings. So we eventually find Petrikov, and he's with this golem named Garnet. Once again, not obvious reference, but Sugilite sees him and realizes, holy shit, this is the same man, this is my creator. Sugilite runs off, bows to him. Petrikov tells him, don't bow, is that a way to treat your father? Like, apparently Petrikov hates the idea of the golems treating him like they're his master, like he sees the golems as his children. So, Sugilite and Petrikov talk for a bit, trying to catch up. Shao's fanboying because, well, famous mage who disappeared off the face of the earth is now right in front of him, and forgot to mention this earlier, Maud, she's back at Cadenza, so she's not here. But anyways, he and Petrikov talk, and it turns out Petrikov, the reason why he's still alive is because through magic, science, and using this ancient artifact called a piece of the Cataclysm, he pretty much kept himself alive by every few decades making himself a new body to replace his old one and transferring his soul. So, kind of like M. Bison. So Sugilite asks if he too can make a body for Sugilite. Sugilite explains, that Sugilite wants to be with a woman he's fallen in love with, and Petrikov responds by smiling, saying it's the least he could do for his first son. Cut to the next year where they've made the body. It's in this glass tube, and I'll just describe this. I pretty much just said for Sugilite's new human body, I just said, just imagine Dave Bautista. And yes, Sugilite still has the same voice, so at this point he's Dave Bautista with the voice of Dimitri Martin, and that's kind of funny to me. But anyways, the process to transfer Sugilite's body involved him laying down on this like metal bed, and then Shao and Petrikov had to perform this spell, which then involves Sugilite's gem being ripped from his body, starting floating in the air. Then suddenly his gem explodes and everything goes black for a bit. Then Sugilite sees a vision of the goddess of life, Beatrice, who tells him to wake up. And then Sugilite's eyes open. Yep, his eyes, well, I just said it earlier, but yes, it was successful. Sugilite is now in his human body. Petrikov hovers there by his side, smiling at his success, and hands him an apple for for the first thing for him to ever to taste. Then also, I think beforehand, pat his shoulder, the first time Sugilite feeling the sense of touch. So pretty much. He also then hands Sugilite a sliver of his gemstone on a keychain. Just a little memento of his old body. Then, pretty much cut to the next year, where it's pretty much explained that Sugilite had to spend, like, the remaining time until now, still with Petrikov learning how to use his new body, and yeah. But anyways, year 4 of the solar session, Sugilite has returned to Cadenza. Well, I believe during that year of Sugilite Leonard's by Shao went back, but yeah, Sugilite is now back in Cadenza, and of course, only thing in his mind, go see Maud, where it took Sugilite a while to get back there because at this point, with another soul session of one of the other characters in the party, the city of Cadenza, yeah, the country and the city have the same name. In fact, the founder of the country was also named Lady Cadenza. You know, DBZ, a Bridge situation, you know, the planet, my son, the planet, or me, you know, it's that situation. But, anyways, it takes Sugilite to get there because damn, I already forgot if I said, but yeah, Connecticut, the solar system, the city, it's pretty much a police state now because of the Inquisition that's being run, well, at this point, it's being run by the party member Spent, but yeah. Sugilite only thing in his mind, see Maud, you know. He eventually makes it to her home and knocks on the door, and it's answered by Maud's sister Petra, who, of course, doesn't recognize Sugilite. I mean, of course not. In fact, I don't believe Sugilite's even met her before at this point, you know, not even as a golem, so Sugilite just asks if Maud's home. She says yes. He asks if he could see her, and, you know, pretty much like, who should I say it is? And he's like, just tell her that someone wants to see her, and she hesitantly agrees. Then she goes back in, then Maud comes out. Yes. Sugilite reaches into his pocket, pulls out the sliver of his gem on keychain and says, hi Maud, it's me, and it takes her like a few seconds for it to click, and she suddenly realizes that, you know, this is Sugilite, and just wraps her arms around him, you know, just happy to see him, you know, now in the human body that they both wanted. You know, Sugilite asking, what does she think? She's happy with it, and Sugilite then smiles and says, well, I guess there's one thing left to do. And finally, for the first time in their relationship, he kisses her. And the DM had me roll for this, you know, roll charisma for this, and Sugilite's charisma is absolute crap. I mean, I think Sugilite has a charisma of 4. I rolled a nat 20. So, yeah, just, even though Sugilite crap charisma, just the first kiss, super romantic, and yeah, very, very sweet, and once it's separated, Maud smiles and then says, well, you know, there's something else we could do, and this results in some more first experiences. But anyways, not going to really talk about year 5 of this soul session because really nothing important happened, so yeah. But after this point, when the next season comes around, it's like another year later, like I think it's like a year and 3 months later after, you know, that point, so I just more or less said at this point Sugilite and Maud are now married, you know, they got married off screen. So yeah, that happened, and yeah, at this point, more stuff has happened. I mean, we're like a few sessions into season 2, but yeah, that's the story of Sugilite and Maud. They're now a happily married couple. Hell, even though it hasn't been officially revealed yet, I am pretty sure she's pregnant at this point. So yeah, the love story of Sugilite and Maud Pia, which yeah, when they got married, Sugilite took her last name because he didn't really have one, but yeah, that's the story. That's all I really have to say, so I hope you enjoyed that. I mean, I hope you at least found it kind of sweet. I don't know. Well, if you're watching this on Valentine's Day, I hope you have a nice day, or actually whatever day you're watching this. It could be any day of the year. I hope you have a nice day. Well, I guess I'll see you guys next time. Bye.